boys, and you can see all these young men. One of the pictures we don't have actually, it's this picture. It's him in the 50s talking to a group of boys. And you look at the expressions on the boys' faces, all white boys in the 50s talking to this black instructor, and they are focused, 100% focused on this man and what he's teaching them. He's teaching them something about how to hold the club. And they are amazingly just dialed in. And that's his impact right there in one photograph.
What does it take to become legendary? Maybe it's winning championships. Maybe it's the myths about your extraordinary achievements. Or maybe it's having a spirit so generous and selfless that your impact on others lives forever.
This is the Lucious Bateman driving range. It's 10 acres, 47 stalls. It was named that way in 1979 by the city after Lucious died in 72. This course is connected to him because every Friday he would bring his students here to play golf, and this was his local course.
Some people view this as a wide open space to hit balls. But for Lucious "Loosh" Bateman, this was a sanctuary. A Southern man who got his start over a century ago, caddying at the Edgewater Hotel and Golf Club in Biloxi, Mississippi. Lucious eventually landed in Alameda, where he served in World War II. After his service, Bateman became a golf coach.
Over that span of 25 odd years that he taught golf, what he did is he taught adult students, but he also taught children, and he never charged children, not ever once. The children were given jobs at the driving range to pick up balls and clean balls, but they were given a lesson by Lucious. He not only taught them golf, but these were all kids from the wrong side of the tracks. So he provided transportation, took them home. He fed them because they were all hungry. So he was sort of essentially the original first tee program. One man first tee. He just taught them everything about life and kindness and how to be a good person. And Gary always says that a lot of them would have ended up in jails instead of making pars.
He would drive us to the golf course. He would pay for our green fees. He would buy us lunch. There's no telling how much money that man paid out of his own pocket in order to help the kids along. He was just a very, very giving person.
I used to come here on Saturdays because he would give free clinics. I remember him in his cane. He would always say inside out, swing inside out, keep your head same spot, and then he would actually literally show you. As a black pro, he was dynamic at that time.
In my opinion, Lucious Bateman is probably the greatest teacher that this game has ever seen. All you have to do is take a look at his record of taking kids from nothing and bringing them all the way up to winning a major championship.
One of those kids was Oakland native Tony Lima.
Here he is. He's got this little putt to win the British Open Championship of 1964 by 5 shots. So there's the new Open champion, and a more worthy one we've never seen.
Tony Lima was a 12-time PGA Tour winner, major champion, and a Ryder Cup team member. Champagne Tony became one of the best and most charismatic players in pro golf. But if it wasn't for Loosh, none of those accolades would have been possible.
Tony Lima's father was out of Tony's life probably by the time Tony was 4 or 5 years old. If it had not been for Lucious Bateman, Tony probably would have ended up in juvenile hall or some other place, And that's the reason why over the years, Tony and Lucious were as close as they were. He was the father figure to Tony Lima.
This is a picture of Tony Lima teaching Bateman the swing. The story is on this day actually is when Tony Lima brought his British Open claret jug to the old driving range. I think it's 8 of his boys went on to play professional golf on the tour, multiple tour winners. But he also had an impact on kids in so many other ways. So kids went on to professional lives that had nothing to do with golf. One of his students, who he paid partial tuition for at Stanford, invented the modern wine refrigeration system. One of his students went on to run the district attorney's office in Sacramento for 35 years. So his sort of mentorship went far beyond teaching golf.
Beauty. All right. Little stiff back.
I played golf with Lucious, gosh, I want to say hundreds of times. When I first met him, he would have been probably a little over 50 years old at the time. But even at that age, he was still shooting in the 60s almost every time here at Alameda when he would play. He was that good a player. And there's no question in my mind that Lucious could have played on the PGA Tour.
Bateman's skills were sharp, and his game was as good as any pro. But back then, the PGA Tour didn't allow black golfers to participate. A rule that changed in 1961 with Charlie Sifford becoming the first African American on the PGA Tour. That experience didn't stop Lucious from making an impact in the game he loved.
His legacy is that as a golfer, as a black golfer, all the obstacles that he had to go through, have shit thrown at him, being called the N-word, told he couldn't play to overcome those obstacles, it's awesome. That's why Lucious Bateman was so good.
This man who had been denied his talent still used the game to give back and have this amazing impact. Right? When you would think he would hate the game, hate everything to do with golf, and just walk away. That's the impact we're talking about. That's how we want to connect. That's what we want to do. We're just walking in these enormous footsteps and pulling that thread from the past and hopefully connecting it some way into the future.
My dad introduced me to the game when I was really young. I only touched a club probably 4 times until I was like 8. And then in July of 2020 is when I started playing and practicing. And ever since then, I really loved the game so much because you know how a lot of other sports, you're stuck to like a court, but out here, it's like you're out in nature. I feel a lot of freedom out here, and it's really great.
Inspired by Lucious Bateman's legacy, Greenway Golf created the Bateman Club, a free annual program for selected competitive golfers that grant access to all practice facilities at the course at no cost, supporting their path to collegiate play.
I've never been to any other course that's so good to the juniors because even if I weren't in the Bateman Club, I could go out and play the course for free in the afternoon, and they always give juniors breaks on buckets of balls. It's just a really great program. I just want to reach my full potential. That's my dream. And I do believe that when I do reach my full potential, the LPGA is where I'll be.
One person at one driving range embodied everything we are trying to do. The impact he had on so many over decades. We are sort of connecting that thread of Lucious. He wanted to show these kids, a lot of them who had no access to a better life, he wanted to show them one. He wanted to mentor them, inspire them, help them get there. He used golf to do it. We're trying to use golf in space to do it.
It's gonna be alright, yeah, yeah. How can you tell? Yeah, yeah. I feel it in my heart, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be okay, yeah, yeah. The sun is shining bright unto another day, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay.